Why do life's disasters always arrive when you're least prepared? Have you ever had a day, without any warning, where you suddenly realized something you believed was solid was gone? Not the kind that fades slowly, not the kind where you watch it decline and finally one day it falls. This is different. Yesterday it was there, today it isn't. That feeling is not the same as ordinary loss. With ordinary loss, you still have time to brace yourself. But this kind, the kind without warning, it teaches you something for the first time, something you can't unknow afterward. The world can change without asking you, without warning you, just like that. There's a scene in the Odyssey that most people never mention when they talk about Odysseus. Not because it doesn't matter, because it moves too fast. It just happens, and then it's over. Here's what happened. After the island of Aeolus, god of wind, Odysseus and his fleet sail on. By then they've already lost the wind that would have carried them home. Aeolus refused to help them again, so they row, by oar alone, for 7 days. On the 7th day, they see a harbor. Homer describes it like this: a beautiful natural harbor, ringed on all sides by towering cliffs, a narrow entrance. It looked safe. Odysseus has 12 ships. One by one, they sail inside. Only Odysseus ties his own ship to a rock just outside the entrance. Homer doesn't explain why. Maybe instinct, maybe habit, maybe that day he just happened to make that choice. A few men go ashore to scout. They meet a girl, a very tall girl. She says her father's house is just ahead. They follow her, and then they meet the father. Homer says he was like a mountain. They saw him and felt fear. The father seized one of the men and ate him. Right there, the others ran back to the ships. And then everything collapsed. The Laestrygonians, the race of giants inside that harbor, began hurling enormous boulders from the cliffs above. The boulders crashed into the harbor, into the 11 ships. Homer says, like fishermen spearing fish, they skewered the men and ate them. Odysseus, watching from outside, drew his sword, cut the rope, ordered his men to row as hard as they could. They escaped the harbor. Just that one ship. 12 ships went in. One came out, hundreds of men almost entirely gone. Homer writes this whole scene and then moves on. Next island. I want you to notice something. In the Odyssey, Odysseus faces many dangers. The Cyclops, Homer takes a long time with that. How Odysseus thinks, how he lies, how he gets the monster drunk, how they escape. The Sirens, also long. That danger comes with warning, with preparation, with strategy. But the Laestrygonians, from sailing into the harbor to near total annihilation, Homer uses fewer than 100 lines. That speed is deliberate, because some disasters are that fast. No warning, no time to think, no strategy that could have helped. The harbor looked safe, and then 11 ships were gone. Homer understood. Fate doesn't give you time to prepare. There is no hero clever enough to outmaneuver a sudden reversal of fate. No plan that survives it. You can only run. If you escape, you live. If you don't, you don't. Odysseus escaped. But what did he carry with him? The people from 11 ships vanished before his eyes. Men who had followed him for 10 years, who survived the battlefields of Troy beside him. And then, in a harbor that looked safe, almost all of them were gone. This is a specific kind of guilt, not the kind where you did something wrong, the kind that has no logic, Why was it me who survived? Why not them? Homer doesn't let Odysseus stop and weep. He keeps moving. But Homer leaves one detail. Later, whenever Odysseus mentions that day, he is never able to speak of it lightly. This is the part survivors carry that almost no one talks about, not how strong they are, but the weight they keep walking with, keep living with. The Laestrygonians live in a harbor ringed on all sides by cliffs, narrow entrance, safe. Like so many places in a life, a stable job, a stable marriage, a large company, a clean health report, an investment, they all look safe. But safe doesn't mean unchanging. Those sailors went inside because that harbor looked like a place to rest. They didn't make a wrong decision. They simply stopped in a place that looked ordinary. And then the disaster came down from the cliffs. Have you ever felt that in your own life? You didn't make a wrong decision. You were just living in a place that looked normal. And then a financial collapse, a company that closed overnight, a pandemic arrived, a war started, or an entire industry suddenly needed far fewer people. The boulders came from somewhere you weren't watching. You couldn't have stopped them with strategy. You wouldn't have known they were coming. That's just how the world works sometimes. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It doesn't offer a reasonable explanation. Things just happen. Odysseus, standing outside that harbor, cut the rope. And his ship got out. I keep thinking about what was inside him in that moment. Not victory, not relief. Something that can't quite be named. You're looking at that harbor. You know your people are inside. You know you cannot go back for them. All you can do is make this ship, this one remaining ship, leave. Now, keep going home. That keep going is the heaviest version of those words. Not because he wants to keep going, because he understands if he stops, their deaths meant nothing. Greek tragedy never tells you how to avoid disaster. Maybe it's fate. Maybe the gods allowed it. Some disasters simply cannot be avoided. What Greek tragedy tells you is this. After everything shatters without warning, what do? Has there been a harbor like that in your life? A place you believed was safe, and then the boulders came down? Maybe you're still inside it. Maybe you just escaped. Maybe you've been rowing for a long time. After that harbor, Odysseus still had a long road ahead. He faced more. But every time he still remembered the rocks falling from the sky. Not because he stopped being afraid, but because he understood, in this world, rocks sometimes fall. And what you can do is make sure the rope isn't tied too tight. Don't build your life on the belief that it can't happen to you. Build it on something that can survive even when the earthquake comes. Not unbroken, still standing. Wu Talks World. See you next time. Full script.